I want to bring up again a very serious problem, a disease in itself, and that is Alcoholics Anonymous and these 12-step programs. I need families who have loved ones that suffer from drug abuse to hear this message. I need the members of these groups to hear this message. Don't tune this out because you don't want to hear the truth or you disagree with what I say. Just please listen till the end. When I use words like AA is a cult and is a poison, it's not for dramatic effect. AA as a whole is self-destructive and harmful to the people looking for sobriety and recovery. Halfway houses and rehabs have turned into nothing more than money markets. Cameron, oh my God. I want to bring up again a very serious problem, a disease in itself, and that is AA and these 12-step solutions. I need families who have loved ones that suffer from drug abuse to hear this message. I need the members of these groups to hear this message. Don't just tune out because you don't want to hear the truth or because you disagree with what I say. Just please listen till the end. When I use words like AA is a cult and is a poison, it's not for dramatic effect. AA as a whole is self-destructive and harmful to people looking for sobriety and the community. Halfway houses and rehabs have turned into nothing more than businesses that scoop in money from insurance, donations, and right out of the pocket of the addict and the alcoholic. And what better business than returning business from a program that doesn't teach you the correct way and leads to relapse and you going through that business over and over again. And even better is spreading that business with slogans like, to spread the word to the alcoholic who still suffers. Let's look at this in a very logical point of view. You take a heroin addict right off the streets of Baltimore. You stick him into one of these rooms. You stick him into one of these meetings. Do you really think he's going to be listening to more of how great this person's life is that's sharing, or how he recovered? Or do you think he's going to be hearing just the word heroin, drug, alcohol? Let's say he goes into one of these meetings where someone goes on an hour-long drunk-a-log. What a drunk-a-log is when a member goes an hour meeting of sharing about nothing other than the good old times or the excitement of when he used or how he used, where he used, and all of that for an hour. Let's say that heroin addict goes into one of these meetings. That would most certainly push him to use that night. These members are demanded to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, their first 90 days of recovery, to work a real program. Using that example, to throw a heroin addict into a room where people are just talking about drugs and people are relapsing left and right sounds to me more like torture. Now let's bring up the stats. 95% of drug addicts that use AA and NA don't succeed. 5% stay sober. Through all the drug addicts in the country, one in every 1,500 people get sober and clean. Now I get it. I truly do. That stats cannot be the say-all of something. But when all the evidence proves those stats, that's what makes it true. Members try defending this by saying, oh, well, that includes people who weren't trying to get sober, or they weren't working the program correctly. And believe me, if they walked into your doors, they were trying. But if you're going to take that into account, you also need to take into account the members that lie about their sobriety. How many meetings have you been to where someone admitted to lying for their first few years and then actually got sober? So for a program that is as worldwide as AA, it damn sure should be helping more than 5%. The comedian Doug Stanhope brings up a great point of how contradicting these programs are and how easily it can be misinterpreted by an addict. He says, the first step of these programs, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and drugs, that our lives had become unmanageable. I say again, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and drugs. Second step, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I say again, power greater than ourselves. Well, I guess then if alcohol was a power greater than myself and I have to select a power, then by default that would be alcohol. Coming into these programs, alcohol and drugs is your higher power. I literally can't say this enough. If AA just got 5% of addicts sober, there'd be no problem with it. But it is a poison and a death sentence for the other 95%. It promotes relapse. And one of the most disturbing things I find about this program is if someone has relapsed through it 6 times, they don't say, oh, well, maybe you should go look for some other kind of treatment. No, they tell you keep coming back, that this is the only way to get sober. If you don't go through this way, you'll be a dry drunk and miserable for the rest of your life. So even though you keep relapsing through this program, just keep coming back here. Telling people that they're powerless to this disease is nothing more than breaking their kneecaps. Forcing people to kneel before this program and its way to sobriety. However, I do have to give AA credit. AA was our first attempt at treating the disease of addiction. But, just like most first attempts, it is also the worst. I don't belittle AA because I like to or because it's easy, which it is. I belittle it because it needs to be belittled. It needs to be criticized and it needs to be exposed for what it is, a death sentence. The families that have lost loved ones in this program deserve it. Let's put it this way. 215 overdoses in the first half of the year in Harford County, 45 of them dead. Harford County is on track to set a record for the number of overdoses, for a record number of overdoses this year. And does AA say, well, maybe we should start changing some things, or maybe this program isn't working? No, they say spread the message to the still sick and suffering. Demand these people go to a program that they have a 5% chance of succeeding in. There are good people in this program. There are very good people in this program that are spreading the wrong message and are unknowingly spreading the wrong message. AA will make smart people say stupid things. AA will make good people bad, and it'll make bad people worse. And there also is an overwhelming amount of bad people in these meetings. Your children are sitting next to pedophiles, sex offenders, and people who literally get self-gratification out of watching other people's misery because it makes them feel better about themselves. There are plenty plenty of older men who are there to do nothing more than take advantage of underage women. Sponsorship has become based on popularity and not sobriety. It's based on the guy that can get laid the most, or the guy that has the most friends. It doesn't matter that he's been through 8 relapses or still doesn't have his life under control. He's the guy that these younger people are looking up to. Keep in mind that 5% success rate here. Your child is to pick a person that will lead him through addiction, a person that has absolutely no education on addictive behavior outside their own experience, a person who still calls himself, after years of sobriety, still calls himself a drug addict or drunk, a person that will demand that you apologize to people that don't deserve your apology, a person who at the second you say, I'm stronger than this disease, I can beat this disease, will break you back down and demand you admit that you're powerless to it. And some sponsors will even teach you you're so weak that you can't even raise your own children. Now I get it. In the midst of addiction, when you're a danger to yourself and you're a danger to everyone around you, you're talking a whole different ballgame. But when you're talking that you shouldn't raise your children because even though you're sober, you still need to continue to put yourself first, that's when it becomes a problem. I was at a meeting at one of the more popular meeting places around here where all the young people go. A man told his story for about 45 minutes of what he's been through, what he did, and how he finally found the change. Well, after a few months, after a few years actually of being sober, he admitted to how he 13-stepped this girl. 13-step is a hugely renowned term in these meetings, widely accepted and acknowledged. 13th step, there's 12 steps in the program. The 13th step is by definition an AA term that is used to describe the efforts of an old-time member who tries to screw a newcomer. That's the definition of it. It's that older member that tries to take advantage of those younger women that come into these meetings. And there's documentaries on literally the 13th step of how there's things like how women were actually raped by other members in these groups, how women are constantly sexually harassed and sexually assaulted by members in these meetings. And again, don't take my word for it. Look these things up. There's a documentary on the 13th step. But anyway, he talks about how he 13th stepped this girl, got her pregnant, and they had a child. Well, between his year of sobriety, they decided that his years of sobriety, they decided that he was still unable to manage his own life, so they need to give the child up for adoption. The part that got me most about that was that this man was applauded and cheered like that was a strength of a decision. If you're going to call it a disease, call it a disease. It's not an excuse. You can't just pawn off your problems and blame the disease for all your wrongdoings. You can't blame the addict for this way of thinking, though. This comes from the moral teachings of AA. When you bring points up like this, members will say, oh, well, there's bad people everywhere. Which shows me that not only do they acknowledge that there's all these problems in the program, but they accept these problems. I find no morality in just turning the other cheek to such things. These big name rehabs teach you things like making your bed, taking a shower every day, going to the gym, eating 3 meals a day, uh, being a responsible human being. There's a video by Navy SEAL Admiral that explains the importance and the benefits of making your bed every morning. Something as small as that is an accomplishment. It's a step in the right direction every morning. That as minute as making your bed is, that you have accomplished something as soon as you woke up. It it doesn't take thousands upon millions of dollars in a rehab to teach you things like that. You need to be empowering these people. Tell them that they can do that they can do this, that they're strong enough to beat that addiction. To improve their life completely around, not just with alcohol or drugs. To set goals, to push further, to want more in life, to want more. AA teaches you none of these things. For AA to say that you will always be a drug addict and that you're too weak to do it yourself is asinine and self-destructive. Your biology is not your destiny. A cigarette smoker that quits does not still call themselves a cigarette smoker 10, 15 years down the road. AA has given the word drug addict even more of a negative stipulation. Once drug addiction stops being treated like a joke, it'll stop being looked at as a joke. Skip your meeting for a night. Just pick a night and skip a meeting for one night. Go to one of these MAD meetings, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Go into one of these meetings and see a woman that has lost her son because their child got drunk and died in a car accident, or even worse, that their child died because someone else's child killed their child while drunk or high. Go up to one of these women and try using some of the excuses that AA teaches you to these women of why you can't help yourself, or how that alcoholic that killed their family was a victim. Explain something like that to them. Or even better yet, quit beating around the bush with the, oh, I'm powerless, this disease has complete control of it. Quit beating around the bush. Look your children in the eye and tell them that, I'm sorry, drugs mean more to me than you. Don't go on your rambles of, I can't help it, or it's not my fault. At least give them the justice of looking them in the face and saying, I picked drugs over you. This program is completely intellectual. This video is not to call people stupid, or to call out stupidity of the members. I was in the same position. I was listening. I was being deceived and listening to all this nonsense. If anybody's calling you stupid, it's this program with slogans like "Your best thinking got you here," or one of their even better slogans, "You can't be too stupid to get this program, but you can be too intellectual." You can disagree with everything I've said. You can question me. You can choose to believe me or not. That's your right. But do you have that right in the rooms of AA in these 12-step programs? No, you do not. They have slogans for that also. Just shut up and listen. Take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. The second you start to question these paradoxes and these gaping loopholes, you'll have 5 members on you explaining why you're wrong. How dare you say that you can beat this addiction? We're going to tell you why you're wrong, and you need to believe that you're powerless to it. This program is proud to say that they have no leaders. This program needs leaders. This program needs leaders that'll hold other members accountable for their actions, that will set the correct example to these newcomers. Not, yeah, I'm a huge 13 stepper. I can get any woman in this meeting I want. You need to look at what's going to help your life the most. It's not popularity. It's not these artificial things. It's the thing that's going to change your life for the positive. And they let anybody sponsor anybody in these rooms. That sponsors is a huge thing. That the difference between someone getting to see their child or not, rests in the hands of a sponsor. That someone that's fighting for custody for his children could be getting advice from a man that distanced himself and cut off his children because he needed to put himself first in his recovery and the cult of AA before his own children. And he could be getting advice from this guy. Not just anyone should be able to sponsor people in these programs. This program was founded by a man named Bill Wilson, a man that had his spiritual awakening while on an LSD trip, a man who was a renowned adulterer, who literally left 10% of his income to girlfriends, a man that, in his own memoir that's published by AA, stated himself that he was out to make a name for himself. And some members look at this man like he's a god, not knowing these things. His house and places he's been are worshipped like shrines. You can buy a coffee mug at his house that says, I drank at Bill Wilson's house. And people have no clue what kind of man this was. His teachings were corrupt then, and it shows today. The court system also needs to be called out for adding to its own problems. First off, it very blatantly breaks your First Amendment right by forcing people into a very clearly religious program. It gets away with this just because AA says it's non-religious. I see some very obvious and big problems with this. One, if the court was looking out for the best interest of people trying to recover, they wouldn't be using a program with such a poor recovery rate, with an extremely poor recovery rate, 5%. Your solution is to stick a drug addict who just committed a crime in a room full of drug addicts who talk about nothing but drugs and are relapsing left and right. That's the solution. 2, they force non-alcoholic minors into these programs, this same environment. That I bring up the example that for members that bring their children to meetings, that you bringing your children to these meetings, you think it's, they're going to hear the message of why not to use and the strength of the rooms. Well, I'll tell you what, common sense tells you if your child's in these rooms and they're hearing the word drug and alcohol, and they're going to school and there's a completely different view on drugs and alcohol in high school compared to the rooms of AA, they're going to get curious. And the same thing goes for these kids that get minor violations that maybe had a couple beers for the first time in his life and got a DUI. Now the court is sticking him in a room with nothing but alcoholics and drug addicts, putting him in that environment and letting him grow in that environment. 3, they're forcing very bad and disgusting people into these rooms that are sitting next to your children in these rooms. Pedophiles, sex offenders, rapists. And don't just take my word for it. Research these things. Go to the orange pages and you'll find stories of women that were raped by other members that were in these rooms. The women that were sexually assaulted and sexually harassed by members of these rooms. And that's not even to mention the cowards, the absolute cowards, the cowards in these rooms that consistently get away with sexual harassment and then hide behind the word anonymity. Jim Battle brings up an excellent example of, you say this is a disease I have no control of, I'm powerless to this disease. He brings up the example, if you were to sit an alcoholic down at a table and set 2 shots in front of him, let him drink the first one. Before he takes that second shot, you set a briefcase down on the table. There's $50 million in this briefcase. This briefcase is yours if you won't take that next shot, if you don't take that next shot for 24 hours. I'll sit here with you at the table, I'll hold this money, I can show it right in front of you. If an alcoholic or a drug addict had a motive like that, I can guarantee you they will not drink or use. I can guarantee it. Now let's look at that on the other side. You stick a cancer patient on that table. You put $50 million on that table, and you say, you stop having cancer in 24 hours and this $50 million is yours. Do you see some of the differences in what can be considered a disease here? You're not powerless to this, people. It takes willpower, it takes effort, it takes strength to get through this. Telling these people that they're powerless when you should be empowering them gets you exactly what you're looking at, a 5% success rate. Don't be deceived by lies like AA has cured millions of people. No, it hasn't, and nor will it ever. And if you're going to take credit for only the good parts of AA, do you not take credit for all? Do you not take credit? Do you not also take credit for all the 13th stepping that goes on in these rooms? Do you not take credit? Do you not take credit for the unbelievably high relapse rate in these rooms? Do you not take credit for the increasing of record-setting overdoses when you are the number one and sometimes only offered solution? No. AA blames the individual, and you judge how much effort they put into your cult. These people that say AA has saved their life have been deceived. And AA is more than happy to take credit for your willpower and your strength at your expense. Please, folks, do not just take my word for it. That would be missing the point of this. Go online, go onto the orange papers, Google anything that I've said, and you will find your answers. You will find the answers to these things. One of the best possible things I could have done to save my own life was to start questioning things and educating myself. To question why I'm depressed, why I drink, why I have anxiety, to start looking into these things. AA doesn't teach you that. AA teaches you to stop searching and just give in. And I don't even mean this to sound negative on religion, but just let go and let God. You will find plenty of religious people that call AA out on its nonsense. The fact that churches are allowing a program that tell people to go make up your own God letting these people rent out their rooms is completely unchristian. AA did not save their life. Just like the money example, they had finally found a motive. They finally found a motive to stay sober. Willpower and determination is what got them sober. And like I said, AA will be more than happy to take the credit for that. Not a 12-step solution that teaches you that you're powerless over your addiction. I'll end it with this. I've heard a few people say, oh, well, when has AA ever killed someone? When has AA ever killed anybody? Let me paint a picture for you. A young girl goes into one of these meetings. And the first person she runs into is one of these bad people, these 13th steppers, which you'll admit to having bad people, you just won't admit to the amount of them. Let's say she runs into one of these 13th steppers, an older man. Let's say this girl is in these rooms because of drug abuse, because of underlying issues. Maybe she was molested as a child, or her father raped her as a child. She comes into this meeting and maybe she hears something vulgar from this man, or he says something sexual towards her. Because of that incident, she leaves those rooms, goes home, overdoses, and dies. You won't take those into account because that wouldn't be your fault, right? That wouldn't be the room's fault, right? It'd be because she didn't put enough into the program, and because she didn't try hard enough in the cult. I have to thank you for watching this. I hope this speaks to someone, or anybody really. I plan on taking this much further than just a Facebook video. And these messages will be heard. I'll do it on my own if I have to, but I need help. If there's anybody that feels the same way about these things, has any questions about what I've stated, please call me, text me, message me, whatever it takes. But like I said, I need help. These things need to be exposed. These things need to be out in the open. And thank you.